Welcome to Business Reporter's Mergers and Acquisitions campaign hosted by the Telegraph Online. Mergers, acquisitions and selling bring a huge change in the life of all parties. What are some of the key considerations to bear in mind? What are the most common pitfalls we must avoid? And most importantly, how to find a reliable expert who will guide us through the whole process. To find the answers to these questions, we have invited Malcolm McDougall from Charles Russell Speechlys. Good afternoon, Malcolm.
Hi, Anna.
So say I'm a business owner and I want to sell my company. What are some key considerations I need to bear in mind before the process?
I think one of the main things is to be prepared and to start that preparation well in advance of a sale process. Say, for example, you need to incentivize the management team of the company. That's something that needs to be thought of well in advance of a sale. Otherwise, it can have adverse tax consequences if only put in place just before a sale takes place. Once you get into the process, the focus will be on negotiating the deal. There will be advisors crawling all over the place. It's important to have prepared in advance so that you have all the information about the company readily available, maybe in a data room, so that all that work has been done in advance and contracts are in place and signed, etc. So that once you get into the process, you don't have to worry about that piece and you can concentrate on the transaction.
Clearly, to achieve a sale, one needs to identify the potential buyers, but also find the right buyer. How does one do that?
Yeah, I think it's absolutely key to, first of all, try and identify a number of buyers so that you have competitive tension through the process, and then try and whittle that down to who is the right buyer for the business. A lot of that is about chemistry, but a lot of that is also about trust and building up a relationship of trust, which will make the deal a lot smoother. Examples in the past on deals that I've worked on where trust has been broken and it's made the transaction a lot harder to deal with. We were doing a due diligence exercise on a business, and in the data room, the main contract that the business relied on, which was 100 pages long, had a one-page termination letter at the end of the contract terminating this contract, and this had not been disclosed in advance, so we just found it in the data room. That sort of thing undermines trust between the parties and makes the transaction a lot harder to consummate.
Now, selling a company can be very stressful, especially if the founder has taken years to grow the company. So one needs the right advisors. How can we find them?
I think it's, as you say, absolutely crucial to choose the right advisors for that particular transaction. There are lots of different advisors with lots of different specialisms, specializing in different areas of the market, very large deals, medium-sized deals, small deals. And so it's important to use an advisor that specializes in that particular area of the market and specializes in that particular size deal. These deals are very different depending on the size and also the nature of the business, where it's located. So it's important to choose those advisors wisely. It's important to do that a long way in advance so that of a sale, so that you can build up trust with the right advisor, so you can compare advisors and choose between a number of them. That's the right one for me. I'm going to spend the next 2 or 3 months of my life in meeting rooms with these people. I have to be able to get on with them. So it's important to choose advisors that you trust, have chemistry with, and who you know have the experience in this particular type of transaction.
So we've got the right advisors, we've got the potential buyers. Now we need to sell at the right price and achieve the best terms. What are the ways of achieving competitive tension, but also achieving that good price?
Yeah, absolutely. I think competitive tension is important, absolutely key. If the buyer knows they're the only show in town, then the seller is naturally in a worse negotiating position. So it's important to identify at least a few potential buyers and at that time try and agree as much of the terms upfront as possible in a term sheet. Any buyer is going to want a period of exclusivity when things come to the end of the process, because they're going to be incurring costs, instructing advisors and spending a lot of their time looking at the transaction. At that point they are the only show in town, but it's important as a seller that you've agreed the main points in advance, say in a term sheet, and tie the exclusivity to that term sheet.
So a buyer is going to want the due diligence set in place and the right documentation. What are your tips for a smooth, efficient process, but also to make sure the company is not damaged in any way when management is off busy, distracted with the deal?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely key. And you often see it in transactions where management are distracted and it starts hurting the business. And if that starts happening in a deal, the buy side are obviously getting financial information and they can see that the numbers are going south. It could put them off, or it could lead to a price dip, etc. So it's key to avoid that. I think that one of the key ways of avoiding it is going back to preparation. If you've prepared well and have a data room put together in advance and have effectively populated that data room, so the majority of the buyer's questions are going to be already answered. And if you have chosen those advisors wisely and they help you in the process and shoulder quite a lot of the load, then that should help smooth the process such that the management of the business are not distracted. As I say, it's important to avoid that at this crucial time for the company.
And as a seller, I want to sell the company, but I also want to make sure I'm not liable to potential claims later on. What is the best way to avoid the nasty surprises that happen after the event?
The important thing is to A, make sure the documentation is watertight in terms of limiting your liability for any claims. To also have gone through a detailed disclosure process. So the sale and purchase documentation is going to contain warranties about the business. The disclosure process is the way that the seller can protect himself or herself or themselves by disclosing facts and matters that are contrary to the warranties. And if a detailed disclosure process has been followed, and if there are good limitations on liability in the documentation, then a seller should be able to sail off into the sunset and sleep at night knowing that they're not going to get any unexpected surprises.
That sounds very tempting. Lovely to talk to you,
Angie, thanks very much.